So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to tourismtechnology.com's webinar, SEO for the Rest of Us. My name is Jennifer Brown, and I'm with Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador in St. John's, Newfoundland. And we are very pleased that you could join us today. And I'd like to acknowledge participation from our partners on this project, the provinces of New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland and Labrador, and the tourism industry associations of each province, including the Tourism Industry Association of New Brunswick, the Tourism Industry Association of Prince Edward Island, and Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador, and of course, Tourism Atlantic, ACOA. The aim of tourismtechnology.com is to empower tourism operators in Atlantic Canada to improve their competitiveness by effectively using online technology. tourismtechnology.com provides operators with the skills, knowledge, and expertise to take advantage of current online tools and resources. tourismtechnology.com offers one-on-one mentoring, workshops, and tutorials, all ranging from basic to advanced levels of learning. If you're following along online today, please feel free to tweet or post using the hashtag TourismTech. I would like to acknowledge my colleagues in PEI and New Brunswick, Allison Clark of TIANB and Jason Ferris of TIANB. We also have Courtney Sutton here from Insight Brand and Marketing Studio with us today. Courtney is a detail-oriented online marketing technician with Insight Brand and Marketing Studio. Throughout her 5 years working with Insight clients, Courtney has created a name for herself in the digital space, particularly through her work with WordPress and SEO. Her thorough knowledge of WordPress has helped her succeed in building a variety of websites, while her background in marketing ensures that each site is built with the client's brand in mind. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to Courtney to get started.
Perfect. Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, so as Jennifer mentioned, I work with Insight Brand and Marketing Studio here in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. And what I do is mostly focus on WordPress websites, as well as a smattering of other platforms here at Insight. But WordPress is my main focus. So through today's webinar, I'm basically just going to run through my own sort of personal checklist that I use whenever we're working with our clients, as well as Insight's own website, and basically just run through some of the things that I think should be first and foremost used. I do tend to talk a little bit fast, so if you're finding me too fast for you, please just say so in the chat there, and I'll do my best to slow down. I am going to cover a different range of topics, but I am going to try to keep it, for the most part, basic, just because I do recognize that we do have a variety of knowledge levels and skill levels in the room with us today. And then at the end, of course, there's always some room for questions. If for some reason I cannot answer the question that you have, I will take a note of it, and we'll be sure to let you know, just so that you do eventually get that answer to that question. All right, so without further ado, we might as well jump right into it. And I'll just start by going over a little bit of an overview as to what we're going to chat about today. So first and foremost, we're going to chat about SEO, what that is exactly. We're going to talk about why that's important. We're going to talk about common misconceptions when it comes to search engine optimization and how that affects your website. And then we're going to get into a little bit more detail with WordPress. We're going to talk about some of the settings that are already in place on WordPress and how you can be utilizing those to help maximize and optimize your search engine optimization. From there, we're going to dive into one particular plugin that I am a great fan of, and that's Yoast by SEO. So we'll chat a little bit about what that plugin is and what it can do for your WordPress site. We're also going to chat a little bit about Google Analytics and the user experience. So the user experience, some of the things you may not necessarily think of when you're editing and updating your WordPress site, but are just as important for your search engine optimization. And then, of course, Google Analytics. Is it working? Is what you're doing working to help your SEO? And if not, how do we fix it so that it is? And then, of course, at the end, we'll have some questions. So, search engine optimization. Search engine optimization, or SEO, is basically just the strategy used to get more traffic to your website and to get that website ranking higher in those search engines such as Google, Yahoo, Bing, all of that sort of fun stuff. It can get pretty technical. If you start searching too deeply online, you're going to get into algorithms and you're going to get into different things that may or may not be working based on what month it is. It seems to be changing so frequently. But essentially, it doesn't have to be that technical. There are, those basic key points with SEO, a lot of those that we're going to be going over today that will help you make sure that you're optimized for SEO. And basically why it's important, search engines, they're the biggest source of traffic to your website, aside from, such things such as social media and direct links, but oftentimes search engines can be your biggest source. So of course we want to utilize those. And as you know, like just as well as I do, rarely people look past the first page of those search results. So, ensuring that you're in among the top results is crucial in order to get that traffic. So that's definitely something that, we want to help you with, and that's, I'm assuming, why you're tuned in today. Some common misconceptions. So this is probably one of my favorite slides. There are, and if any of you have any knowledge of SEO, there are some misconceptions out there in terms of what's going to help your website get a little bit of a boost. First one, SEO is all about keywords and links. While keywords and links are important, it's not everything. There are a multitude of different ways to help boost your SEO, and just, making sure that your keywords are optimized and that you have links throughout your site isn't going to cut it. So the second one is similar to the first one. Leaving behind links to your site helps your SEO. So if you're on other people's sites or other blogs and that sort of thing where you can leave a comment and direct people back to your site, that's great, and that's certainly something that is good to know. But to leave behind a link to your site just to leave behind a link to your site, it really doesn't help in the grand scheme of things. If anything, it just makes the people angry who you're leaving the comment on their site there. So headers, so that's another one there. So headers H2 through H6. So without diving too deep into some code, essentially those are the different rankings, starting with H1 and going all the way through to H6. Those are the different rankings that basically can do a multitude of different things. One of the misconceptions is that if you have a heading with a rank of 2, that's going to affect your SEO. While it might help a little bit, it's really not that big of a deal. Really you want to focus on your main heading on each of the different pages and each of the different posts. And I'll show you exactly what those are when we dive into WordPress just a little bit later here. It's only a one-time kind of thing. If you put certain settings and certain placeholders in place on your WordPress website and never touch it again, that is not going to do it. SEO is something that, of course, it is important to have it in place, but it's also important to check in frequently to see what's working and to alter or adapt as necessary. It's something that you need to continuously work at in order to see results. And when I say continuously work at, I mean from the point of launch to the point of actually seeing some change can be up to 6 months. So it's not something that, of course, unfortunately, you can just, install a plugin and then away you go and everything's fixed. It's something that you're going to have to work at, which is always good to know. Social media will guarantee SEO. So this one is a little bit tricky. Social media, of course, does help boost your search engine optimization because search engines look at more than just your website. They look at your entire online footprint. Things such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, all of those definitely help build your credibility in search engines' eyes. They basically give a little tick or a little nod to say, yes, they do exist. Yes, they know what they're talking about. Yes, it's credible. It's not going to guarantee your SEO, though. If you have a Facebook page and you never use it, that is the same thing as having a website and not using it. It actually can do more harm than good. So just one of those things that you want to look at the big picture and make sure that you're optimizing your entire online footprint not just your website. All right, so since we've covered a little bit about SEO, we're going to dive in now to talking about the reason why we're all here, and that is how to optimize your WordPress website. And as I said, there are some existing WordPress settings that are there that you can utilize to help boost your SEO. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of those today. And again, if you have any questions, just jot them down and we'll chat a bit at the end. And I'll also go through an actual WordPress website and show you just some of where those settings are for anyone who may not be familiar. So page titles, first and foremost. So page titles are exactly what they are. They're the title of your WordPress pages. Some key things to keep in mind there are how they're worded, what keywords are in there, and how long are they. So one of the biggest mistakes that you can make with a page title is not including a keyword or having it not be relevant to what it is exactly that you're trying to optimize yourself for online. You know, if you have a page title that is, 10 words long and none of them really speak to exactly what it is the meat of the page talks about, it's almost a waste of real estate space. So you do want to make sure that they make sense for what you're talking about. You want to make sure that they're using relevant keywords. Now, with keywords, it's always quality over quantity. If you're putting keywords in place, it doesn't just have to be any sort of keyword that, if you're, say, a plumber, you don't necessarily just have to use the word plumbing all over and over and over again. You want to make sure that it's quality keywords, and those can be broken down into primary and secondary keywords. Primary being the most obvious, but the secondary ones providing the credibility to the first ones. And then, of course, you obviously want a page title that's not going to be extensively long because they then get cut off in search engine search results. So one, it doesn't make them look very pretty. Two, when you're scrolling through search results, you want to make sure that all of those relevant keywords are visible. And three, because it does affect the URL, or it can affect the URL of the page itself, which sort of brings us to our second point there. So with URLs, again, it's always good to have a shorter structure if you can, and that's just because it makes it easy to remember for people to reference, as well as if someone wants to link to it on social media such as Twitter. Sometimes you don't necessarily want to have a very long URL there. You also have certain settings within WordPress that affect your permalink structure. So your permalink structure is essentially when you look at a URL and you're looking at a page or a post, if you look at what comes in the different sections of the URL. So for instance, typically your domain for ours, for example, is insightstudiopei.com. So that is the first part of your URL. But what comes after that is your permalink structure. So that could be sorted by date, it could be sorted by page ID, but I always found that the best permalink structure is a custom permalink structure, and I'll show you where those are in your WordPress settings here there. But essentially, that's the best way to do it because you, again, are getting those relevant keywords in there. It just makes it a little bit easier to remember, just a little bit more friendly. And one of the other things to keep in mind when you're creating your permalink structure or your URL is to get rid of something called stop words. And stop words are just what they have, you see on the screen there. A, and, the, of, basically those non-needed words that really, they make no difference to the URL. They're almost like a waste of space. So yeah, we want to make sure to get rid of those stop words there. And the final piece on there is actually a newer piece that has recently become to affect SEO, especially when it comes to Google. So I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with SSL certificates or not, but essentially what that is when you go to a website and if it has an SSL certificate, up in the top left corner you're going to see a little lock basically telling you that it's a secure site. So what that does is it provides a little bit of credibility to the website to say that yes, it is secure, and yes, we have those certain encryptions and whatnot in place. Google is starting to give a higher priority to those that have SSL certificates. So that might be something that you might want to invest into. And while it's not necessarily WordPress related, it is something that you might find beneficial to you. Another URL setting that is available in your WordPress settings, and I'll show you that as well, is what your WordPress website uses for its URL structure, and that's the beginning of it, so that whether or not you use www or whether or not you just jump right into InsightStudioPEI.com, for example. And whether it really doesn't matter what you use, but you want to make sure that you're consistent with it. And that, of course, is just, again, adds to that credibility there, as well as it can affect your SEO, because just through your user experience, which we'll chat more about later. News articles. So I'm going to call them news articles. They're also known as blog posts, but they're essentially the same thing. So there are some WordPress settings involved specifically for blog posts, such things as don't keyword stuff. So that's what I was mentioning before. You want to have quality over quantity. So while it's great to have blog posts and it's great to have news articles, you want to make sure that you're being careful about your length. If you have a page worth of content and half of it is basically you stuffing some keywords in there to try to optimize your SEO, well, Google's pretty smart and it's going to figure it out, and it actually can do more harm than good. So that's where, again, we want to focus on having both primary and secondary keywords in there. Primary being things, such as plumbing. Secondary being things such as the specific plumbing services that you provide, different keywords associated with plumbing that then build the credibility that, yes, this person knows what they're talking about, as opposed to just putting plumbing in there 50 times. Again, you can optimize your headings similar to page settings. So again, you want to make sure that you're using certain keywords in that heading, but that they make sense. You want to make sure that the length isn't too long. And again, if you are editing your URL, just try to make sure to get rid of those stop words, a, of, the, and, that sort of thing. The one additional piece for news articles, though, that WordPress has in place is categories and tags. So categories and tags both help your search engine optimization. They provide additional keywords for search results, but they also help with sorting the different news articles specifically based on those categories. So it can help with your sitemap, as well as help with your user experience to make sure that users that are going to your WordPress website are able to find out what they need to know as quickly as possible. And I'll show you a little bit of where those categories and tags are as well. Images. So this is probably one that not a lot of people use, and I'm not sure if it's just because, typically people can use so many images that it becomes a hassle to use the different things involved, but there are certain things that you can do when you upload an image to your WordPress site that will then help boost your search engine optimization. Things like alternative image text. So what that is essentially if you have a reader view or someone who is visually impaired, visiting your website, instead of seeing the image, it reads out the alternative text. So essentially it's a descriptive bit of text that accompanies the image and just shares a little bit about exactly what it is you're seeing. So this is a great opportunity to add those keywords in there about exactly what it is that the image is portraying. The titles of the image. If you're uploading an image that is in IMG-2-5737, that really doesn't do anything for your search engine optimization. But of course, if you have it named as, plumbing pipes.jpg. That at least then you have a few keywords in there, and again, it's going to help boost your SEO. And then the other piece that I find that isn't really used all that much is size compression. So there are, without getting into too much detail, there are a few different things you can do to help with your image size compression. Images, for instance, that are photographer quality, so the raw photos, typically are are very, very large. So they're measured in something called pixels. So they're typically anywhere around 4,000 pixels wide. And really, the standard size screen for a desktop is 1920 pixels wide. So you can see that you're actually uploading a photo that is massive in comparison to what's actually needed, especially when it might only be used on a quarter of the screen. So you want to make sure to have it as small as possible. You really don't need it any bigger than you're going to use it. As well as there's something called pixels per inch, which is exactly what it is there. And really for web, they only need to be 72 ppi, or pixels per inch. And that's something that if you go into an image editor, it can compress that down for you. That's going to save you space on your website, so things are going to load faster, again tying into that user experience. But it's also, because it's loading faster, it's going to help boost your search engine optimization and your credibility with search engines as well. So just something to keep in mind. And again, all of that is stuff that can be done through WordPress. No additional plugins or anything like that needed. It's just a little bit of extra work, but in the end it can go a long way. So we're going to shift gears a little bit now, and we're going to dive into a plugin that we use here at Insight. I install it on all of our clients' websites. We use it ourselves, and I think it's really beneficial for those that have WordPress websites because it helps get the additional pieces for SEO without the need to handle code or go back end into hosting or any of that fun stuff. So, Yoast by SEO. It is a plugin, like I said, that allows you to put certain practices in place without the need to learn code. So some of the things you can do, and I'll show you where you can do this on an actual WordPress site as well. But essentially, you can customize the page titles and the metas. So when I say metas, it's all of those metadata that search engines pull through. So when you go to, say, google.ca and you search for marketing, you're going to get a pages and pages of results. How that's broken out is you have a title, you have the URL or the slug, and then you have a description. And typically the description, it can be a certain set of characters long, and typically it gets pulled from the first however many characters on a page. I don't know about you, but I don't say everything I want to say within the first 100 characters on my
I'll get the door.
So what we want to do then is we want to be able to customize that to say whatever it is we want to say. One, it's going to make it look a little bit nicer on search engines. It's going to grab people's attention as they're scrolling through the sites that are there, which of course is going to make them click on yours. Then that increases traffic, which then helps boost your SEO. So you can do that, and I'll show you how to do that as well. Customize social media metadata, so similar to search engine results, Facebook, Twitter, they typically, when you put a link into Facebook or Twitter, they will grab a certain snippet of information, perhaps an image, and that may or may not be what exactly you want it to look like or what you want it to say. So what you can do through this plugin is actually customize what that particular page says or what that particular post says when it's inputted into social media. Again, it can help draw attention to it, but it also helps boost your SEO with those keywords. One that I'm not going to touch on too much, but just to let you know that it does do, is it creates and updates an XML sitemap. So without going into too much detail and boring you all senseless, essentially what an XML sitemap is the sitemap that a certain file type that is submitted to search engines such as Google, Yahoo, Bing, that essentially break out the sitemap of any website, and that essentially shows them what pages you have. It can even be what images you have, what posts you have. And anytime you update your site, you would have to submit a new XML sitemap so that Google or search engines then know that that additional page exists. So it's a little bit complicated to do, but basically what this does is it does it for you automatically. So it automatically, anytime you create a post, anytime you add a new page, it updates your XML sitemap and sends it to the most important or popular search results. So that's taken care of for you. It then prompts the search results to include that page and that post in its search engine results. It also has something called cornerstone articles. So cornerstone articles are basically those articles that are almost like a feather in your cap. They're the ones that you're most proud of, the ones that may reflect your business or the specific keywords you want to be searched for. So you can mark it as a cornerstone article, and it basically just gives a little bit of a notification to search engine results to say, hey, this article is more important, pay special attention to that one. It also can help remove stop words from your URLs. So like I said, the keywords a, of, the, as, all of those stop words, it will actually take them out for you. So that's going to take out a lot of that work for you, as well as you don't necessarily have to remember to do it. It just gets done automatically. And it can actually help associate with your social media profiles. So what it does is you can input which social media profiles you have, and it will sort of link them all in place and make it easier for search engines such as Google and Yahoo and that sort of thing to make the relevant connection between all of them and sort of have those almost assigned to your specific account, if that makes sense. All right, so the user experience. So I've sort of have been touching on this one all along, but I am going to dive into it. And while it's not necessarily WordPress related, it is something that is just as important as content development and as those different procedures and guidelines put in place. So your SEO is really, it really is affected by more than just keywords and links. It's also affected by the user's experience on your website. Now this can include speed, the ease of navigation, mobile optimization, all of that sort of fun stuff. So really, when you think of it, when someone goes to your website and they like what they see and it's easy to load and they find what they're looking for easily, they're more apt to come back. If they go to a website and it takes longer than a few seconds to load, if they can't find what they need, if it's misleading based on what's coming up in search engine results, they're not going to come back. And Google, all of the algorithms at Google and Yahoo and everything, all of those search engines, they have those algorithms and the know-how basically to be able to tell the difference between the two. When you have more traffic going to your website, it increases your credibility and it then helps your SEO. There are some things that you can do to help with your speed, your ease of navigation, and your mobile optimization. With WordPress specifically, we chatted already about image compression. So again, having those images compressed, don't have them any bigger than you need them. Again, that's going to help your load time there. There are different caching plugins. So caching is basically almost like preloading your website and having it so that it loads quicker for the user. And there are some different caching plugins that are free to use that you can install, one of them being WP Super Cache. And again, it does it for you. So you can go ahead and install that, and it will do the work of basically caching a copy of your website so that it then loads quicker. And one other one is hosting resources. So this is probably the most overlooked, and I find that it typically becomes an issue, not necessarily for those beginning with WordPress websites, but those that have had it for a little while now and they're starting to experiment with more functionality. They usually have a little bit more in terms of pages, posts, and images. And I find that as your website grows and as you add functionality and as you add data to it, your website hosting needs to grow with you as well. And really, it could be a matter of a few dollars more per month, which isn't a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but it can actually be the difference between your page loading quickly and having your users stick around, or your page not loading quickly and having them take off before they even get a chance to see it. So just to keep an eye on that, it is something that is important. And of course, then we're going to get into some Google Analytics. So basically, we've put everything I've just talked about into place. We've, added keywords through our content. We are, our site is loading fast. So we've done everything, but is it working? So I alluded to this earlier, but it is not a simple process of you put it in place and it works and you're number one, and that's all you have to do, and no one will ever take number one away from you. It is trial and error. And part of that trial and error is finding the keywords, finding the different things that work well for you based on your company and the keywords you want to be known for. And so there has to be a way to measure where we are aside from just typing it in on Google and seeing where we land. So Google Analytics is great for that. So essentially what it does is it measures your online footprint. It measures your impact, and it gathers that information needed so that you can then tweak your settings and your content in order to maximize your results. And it does take time to notice an impact. It can take actually up to 6 months, and with that, constantly posting on social media platforms, on tweaking your content and all of that, it can still take up to 6 months for search engines to start to see you as credible and to slowly increase your lead there. So what should you check? So I'm not sure if anyone in here actually has Google Analytics or not. If you don't, I strongly encourage you to do so. It does not take long to set up, and you can link it fairly easily through your WordPress site. There is a tremendous amount of information on there. The data that it provides, it really is valuable. But because it does provide a lot of information, it's very easy to get lost. So what I'm going to do is just give you a few tips and tricks at what you can at least start looking at on Google Analytics. And then as you become more comfortable, you'll be able to dive a little bit deeper, get a little bit more of those analytics, and hopefully that'll help you alter your SEO methods and content and in order to maximize your results. So user demographics, this one's fairly obvious. The age, the gender, the location, the language, all of that is provided for those that are visiting your site. Now, while you obviously it's great information to have, you want to make sure that the users you're getting are what you're expecting. So for instance, if you know that your particular market is primarily professional females, age 35 plus, but when you visit your Google Analytics, you're getting males 20 to 35. Well, there's a disconnect there. And maybe the content when they're coming there is they're leaving right away. They're not spending very much time on your site, which it will also show you. So you can actually see if there's a disconnect. And then you can alter your content to make sure that you're accurately reflecting who you want to be bringing there. Another one is your site speed. So again, we just sort of talked about this, but it will actually tell you how fast your site is loading for users. Again, anything above a few seconds you're going to want to look into to make sure there's, to see if there's a way you can optimize that. Because if you have a high load time, then you're going to lose people. Site acquisition, so this is basically how they've come to land on your site. This will cover topics such as organic results, so those that come from search engine results automatically, those that come from social media platforms, whether or not they come from Facebook or Twitter or that sort of thing, whether or not they're a referral. So referrals are great because it'll actually show you if you have your website linked through another website, it will tell you what website they come from. So for instance, we have a Chamber of Commerce here in Charlottetown, and we can actually, if you log into your Google Analytics and you see that you have a certain percentage of your users are coming from, you can actually see that they're coming from the Chamber of Commerce, so then you know that that particular link that you have on that outlet is working, which again, it can lead to opening doors for other additional data analysis. They also will tell you a little bit about user behavior. So how long they travel through the site, how long are they on there for, how long they stay on a particular page. So again, if you're finding one page has a lot of content, but really they're staying 30 seconds max, are they really reading the content, or is it being lost? And maybe we should find out a way to change the layout or change the content so that it's easily absorbed. And do they come back? Yes, so user behavior. So again, it will also tell you whether or not they come back. So having a user stop by once is one thing. Having a user come back is another. Obviously, you want to place a little bit of higher importance on those that are returning. They're viewing your website as a resource, so there must be something that they're liking in order to come back. So again, you want to take a look at all of those different things that we just sort of chatted about. But you also want to make sure you're looking with enough span of time. So if you look at a few weeks, you're really not going to get that big of a picture unless you have a specific event that is focused within that certain time frame. Really what you want to look at is you want to look at a large span of time. You could look at something over a course of 3 to 6 months, even up to a year, that really will show you how your website is how it's going, and if there's any growth, if there is anything that you should be made aware of, and that sort of thing. All right, so now we're going to switch gears a little bit before we jump into questions, and I'm going to take you through an actual WordPress website that will essentially show you a little bit about the Yoast SEO plugin as well as the WordPress settings that are in place. And then we're going to jump back to our PowerPoint here, and I'll answer any questions that you may have. Okay. Okay. So, and let me know if for some reason that's not showing up for anyone, but hopefully everyone sees the back end of a WordPress website, and hopefully it's familiar for all of you. So essentially, we've logged into the back end here, and I'm going to take you through. We'll start with just some of the things that are in place for the Yoast SEO. There is a lot of different settings available, but I'm going to take you through the ones that are probably most important for editing your posts and your pages. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to pages, and I'm just going to add a new page. Bear with me while my computer loads up there. Okay. So hopefully this is somewhat familiar as well, where we're on the back end of a WordPress page editor. So again, you have the ability to edit your page title here. So we'll just put in a test title here. And again, you want to make sure that it's a decent length, that you're using relative keywords, and if you can, to try not to use those stop words in there, although we will have those taken out automatically for us through our plugin. What we can also do then is we can include some content down below here. So for instance, content can go here. Now, as we scroll down, what Yoast SEO does is it adds an additional box, which you can see hopefully right here. And what that does is it actually gives you a little bit of a preview of what you're going to see when your search engine result comes through. And again, I mentioned you have your title, which is this blue line right here, your URL, which is the green line, and the gray line is your meta description, and all of this makes up your metadata. You can actually see what it looks like on a desktop as well as what it looks like on a mobile site. So This is actually really great because we can edit that snippet and what that says. So if we click on Edit, you can edit what the title says, so that blue part. You can edit the last part of the slug of your URL, and you can actually edit your meta description. And again, this is great because you can then have it look just a little bit crisper and cleaner. It will actually show you through this bar here and this bar here how long your description is and whether or not it falls within the amount of characters allotted. So if it's green, that's great, and that's the perfect amount. If it's orange, you're getting a little bit long, and if it's red, you've exceeded your amount, and that's where you kind of get things cut off. So again, you want to make sure that you're editing those. You can also, if you go to this little V-shaped thing here, if you click on that, that's your previews for both Facebook and for Twitter. So you can put in a title, a description, and an image. And again, do the same for Twitter. And again, so that's where you can optimize the look for social media profiles so that when you do add that link in, they're going to see exactly what it is you want them to see. You also can provide a focus keyword. And what that is you put in a keyword that you want to see whether or not you're doing a good job in placing it throughout your article or your page. This could be, so for instance, plumbing or marketing. And when you place it in here, so for instance, marketing, and we're going to press enter on our keyboard, and because my content is blank, I can see that it's going in red. And essentially what that means is that it will actually give you a bit of analysis here. So my text contains 4 words, far below the recommendation minimum of 300. There's no meta description being specified. The focus keyword doesn't appear in the first paragraph, just things like that. So it's going to actually give you a bit of an analysis, and if it's green, then that's great. So just some things there. And of course, you can check it as a cornerstone content article right there. All right, so there's that piece. When you go into Yoast SEO, there is actually a majority of different tools that you can use. The titles and the metas, you can actually, if you go to your post types tab here, you can actually set a default. So if for some reason you don't necessarily have the time to enter a custom meta description, although that's preferred, you can edit a generic one in here for both pages and posts, and it will pull that one specifically as opposed to the default, which would be the first however many characters on the page. And then, of course, if we go into media, we're going to see some of our images here, and I'll just pull up one. So this is just an email signature of a coworker. And again, you can see the caption, the alternative text, and a description here. So you can also edit your title right here as well. So all of that you can use to boost your SEO. And we actually have something installed that compresses our images for us. So those plugins are available as well, and that just essentially compresses the size down to the minimum amount needed, as well as remove some of that sort of extra fluff that's in there. And so that's definitely a good setting to have for sure. All right, so that's really what I wanted to focus on there. So I'm just going to switch back to our PowerPoint here. And then we can take any questions that anyone might have. If there is something that might be WordPress specific, I can pull it up on the site here if you want me to run through anything. But yeah, feel free to ask away. Okay, So we have one question from Kim Turnbull. So what would you add to the media to make it work better? Any suggestions? So again, so I did mention that there is a plugin. One example is called, I think it's WP Smush, if I recall correctly. And that is essentially, it compresses those image files down for you. Without getting into the nitty-gritty, boring details, there is additional data that's stored within images. And it basically, it takes those out and it compresses them down to a small enough size that it doesn't affect your quality, but does save you some space there. In terms of the title and the alternative text and description, though, that's really something that unfortunately you do have to add manually, and that's just because really it would be tricky to try to figure out exactly what's going on in the image, and I don't know of any programs that would do that for you. So Diane, the Old Salt Box Co., can we add the Yoast plugin and edit existing content? So yes, Yoast can be added at any time. It does not have to be installed when you first install or develop your website. It is free, so you can go into your plugins and then add new, and then install Yoast by SEO. And there is actually a configuration wizard, which you gotta love those. So it will ask you some simple questions, such as, the name of your company. It'll ask you for a logo. It will ask you a few standard questions, and then it does the work for you. That being said, you would have to go back through the different pages and posts and edit those metadata, the descriptions there yourself if you did want those edited, and that again is similar to the image alternative text, because there isn't really anything that could customize it for you. It would be something that would have to be done manually. But once that initial work is out of the way, then it's just sort of an ongoing maintenance, which is a lot less daunting. Let me see here. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Jason. I see that you posted the link there for me. I've been told by a large developer that you'll plug in and actually slow down the speed significantly. So it is a fairly bulky plugin. Really, though, it's something that they've been trying to optimize it for speed as they go, and it kind of comes back to all plugins take up space. It's one of those things, and as well as your theme also takes up space. So it's one of those things that you sort of have to weigh the benefits versus the risks. If you have 5 plugins and they all do somewhat similar things, or you can get a larger plugin that does all of those things for you, that plugin might be larger, but you may end up saving space by not having to have all of the additional smaller plugins on there. Again, there could be additional ways to speed up your site by having a caching plugin, by making sure that your hosting is accurate in terms of the resources available, and making sure that that's in a decent level that's going to handle the additional traffic and data available there. But again, yeah, it is a little bit of a bulky plugin, but it's one of those things that you sort of have to weigh the benefits versus the cons there. What plugin do you use that automatically presses the images on our website? So there is a few available. One option is WP Smush, I think it's called, and that one does basically image compression. Some of them are paid versions, so it depends on how much you want to, how many images you have to compress. One that we use is it's called Compress JPEG and PNG Images, and that's by a company called TIANB, and that will it will automatically optimize those images for you in order to help speed up your site. But it does have a certain limit for the free account. Once you hit that limit, you then have to wait for an additional month to optimize the rest, or you have to upgrade to the paid version. Again, that's just whether or not you're interested in doing that. Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Jason. Yes, I think that's another one there, compressed JPEG, yeah. Any other questions, or I can, if you have questions specifically around Yoast or WordPress settings, I can flip over and show you those. And if anyone thinks of a question, I don't know how they would best get in touch, but feel free to, you can contact me. I think, Jennifer, you probably have my contact information. I don't know if that's something you can share. So if they do think of a question afterwards, I'm more than happy to help. They can always send me an email or give me a call.
Would you be willing to share your PowerPoint presentation today, Courtney?
Of course, yep. I think you have a copy of that, or if you need a certain file format, just let me know and I'm happy to pass that along.
Awesome. So if you're wondering what your next learning steps might be following this presentation, there are many technology learning options available to you by simply contacting your Provincial Tourism Industry Association. We would be happy to help you determine your next steps, whether they be one-on-one mentoring, further workshops or training opportunities, or if you simply have a question regarding your online technology. TourismTechnology.com has one more webinar planned for this fall. On Wednesday, November 8th, we will host Influencer Marketing with Newfoundland and Labrador Tourism. If you haven't already registered for this webinar, there is still plenty of time to do so. Thank you so much, Courtney, for your time today. This is a really great presentation, and you covered a lot of great information. I think a lot of people are going to go home and go on the back ends of their website and put into practice a lot of what you covered.
No, thank you for having me. Great.
Yes, no, anytime you want to present, you are more than welcome. So you can check out tourismtechnology.com for a complete list of resources, or again, call your Provincial Tourism Industry Association. I'd like to thank our project partners, the provinces of New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland and Labrador, and the tourism industry associations of each province, including the Tourism Industry of New Brunswick, the Tourism Industry Association of Prince Edward Island, and Hospitality Newfoundland and Labrador, and of course, Tourism Atlantic, ACOA. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we look forward to working together with you in the future. Thank you again, Courtney.
Perfect. Thank you.